the meeting to order. Before we get started, though, with the agenda, I'd like to just recognize the Celebration and Town Hall family suffered a very sad loss this past Monday. Mary Jane Durling, she was with us for 12 years in Celebration, and she passed away. She's widely known to the residents of the community. She worked as an inspector for most of the years in community standards team. I'll always remember her as her long blonde ponytail buzzing by through Celebration on the Town Hall Nev, and I'll always remember that with fondness, and I hope you all have a fond memory of her also. Our thoughts and prayers are with Mary Jane's family and the Town Hall staff during this time. She'll most certainly be missed. So if we could have just a brief moment of silence in recognition of her valuable life to us. Thank you very much. I'll go ahead and get started now. I'd like a motion to adopt the agenda.
So moved. David.
Thank you, David. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Debbie. Second from Debbie. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Then we will go ahead and get started with the management update. Steve?
Good morning, first to board members and my teammates that I've only seen through the computer over the last 3 weeks. And good morning to all the residents that are here with us this morning and that will be watching later online. I'm going to just, well, first, thank you, Vanessa, for taking that moment of silence for MJ. She'll certainly be missed by our family there at Town Hall. But as we continue to move forward with the level of service that we're providing for the community, I'm just going to go quickly down the list of the items that we've been working on. And then I'm going to ask the department heads if they just would give a little bit of update on some of the things that they're doing. So I'm going to start with communications and lifestyles. And this is fresh on my mind because I just watched it this morning, but I just want to thank JR and Kathleen Scipio as the executive director of the foundation, working together to put together that Windsor video. If you haven't had a chance to watch it, it's in your Friday Flash, and it's very nice. It's about a 10-minute long video. I think my favorite is our staff Robin doing the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air song, followed by the young man on the piano. So it was a very good video, and I thank them for that. And then JR, if you could just kind of give us an update of some of the things and talk a little bit about the parade of lights that took place this week with the Osceola County Sheriff's Department.
Sure. The parade of lights, the first responders parade, was Tuesday night through parts of the community as well as a few other communities in the area. Deputy Weiland and I began talking the week before Easter. They had already done some towards the eastern part of the county, and I had asked them what the chances were in the western part of the county. At that point, they were still trying to put some things together. They hadn't committed to anything, and then the Friday before Easter, I reached back out and he said they were going to do something in the western part of the county, but Celebration wasn't part of that as of that point. So I asked him if there was anything we can do to try to get something here. So he reached out to his people, and then Monday, the Monday after, okay, so this week, the Monday after Easter, he did some kind of looking at some routes in town and submitted those to the sheriff's office. And then it was Tuesday at about 12:30, we found out it was going to happen. They were just waiting to confirm a few things. And then I think it was about 3:30, I found out, got the definitive answer that they were going to come in. And that's when we sent out the cell service push and got the word out to the community there. The response was great. I mean, the sheriff's office live streamed it on their page. We live streamed when they came through Town Center and Market Street, so that people could see that and that it would be housed on our page as well. But the response was great.
Yeah, it was a great treat for the community. I saw a lot of response on Facebook, and I had friends from Celebration texting me and thanking us for that. So thank you, JR and Osceola County Sheriff's Department and Deputy Jerry Wineland for putting that together and bringing them through Celebration. Do you have anything else you want to add, JR?
I mean, our Facebook page actually hit a 10,000 follower yesterday. So we were doing a little contest there. The person who ended up being our 10,000, we're going to give away a Celebration bear. So that occurred yesterday. and you mentioned the video already. You know, I'd like to thank the foundation for all their help and their ideas that they've been putting forward, and also included in the flash, you might see the foundation's doing hearts for the community, for the first responders and the frontline folks, where people can purchase a sign. So all that information is included in the flash as well.
That's excellent. Do any board members have any questions for JR?
Yeah, I do. On that Facebook page, is that just residents?
No, our Facebook page is an open page.
Okay. Do you know the percentage of non-residents on that, or any idea?
I do not. People don't have to register. They can just follow the page.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions for JR while he's unmuted?
Just a quick, JR, thank you very much. I know on Monday when we talked, that was that you were trying to work this out with the Sheriff's Department. It's much appreciated, and I think it was a tremendous success. We had lots of people that reached out to me saying, hey, they drove by my house, so they were very excited about it. Thank you.
Sure, no problem.
Just a question, JR, I see in the report that you're looking at Memorial Day ceremony and you're looking at various options. So a lot of that will unfold. And I'm glad you're thinking of different options, because we don't know what the status will be, what the law will be, and then what good practice would be. So I guess final decision will be just right before that, right?
Yeah, right now, I mean, we're moving ahead as if, I don't want to make light, but as if nothing is happening, because it's always easier to pull back than to try to rush and get it done at the last minute. So we're moving ahead as if, you know, our scheduled events in May are going to happen. If we have to pull back, if we have to cancel, you know, that it's easier to do it at that point. But you know, we're trying to keep things moving along as best we can.
And David, just to add on to that, we do have a little bit more direction based off of the president's plan for reopening the country that he presented last night. We're going to talk a little bit more about that under agenda item 2, and we'll talk a little bit about reopening celebration.
Okay.
All right, if there's no other questions for JR, I'll move on to service areas. I know Tim's been doing regular walkthroughs and the service areas throughout the weeks. He was finalizing the Parkview painting project and then some of the spring cleaning at the different townhome service areas. So Tim, do you want to add anything?
They're staying on schedule. Painting's on schedule. Everything's looking good. Residents seem happy with the cleaning and with the painting so far. They have finished the townhomes on the Celebration Avenue, and 4 of those owners have reached out saying how happy they were with the cleanliness of the job and how everything looks in the crew that was painting. So that's good news there. And other than that, I don't have anything else, Steve.
All right, thank you, Tim. Do any of the board members have any questions for service areas?
No, I'm good. Anybody else?
No.
Okay, I don't see anybody.
Thank you,
So, yep, thank you. We'll move on to maintenance and operations then. Mike and his team have been working on cleaning benches throughout the community. And then he put in his report this week some of the energy savings that we've been doing throughout the community. And then just some of the work that they've been doing on fields and fertilization and things like that. So, Mike, anything you want to add?
Hi, everybody. I mean, that's pretty much it. We have a lot of projects that, you know, that can be done that we probably wouldn't have been able to get to without, you know, the situation we're in. So I guess that'll be one positive out of this. But, you know, we're making sure that the guys are, you know, staying, you know, apart from each other. Each has their, you know, daily routine. I mean, that's basically what we're doing.
Thank you, Mike. Any
Wish I had more
questions from the board? Sometimes cleaning stuff isn't the most fun or biggest entertaining highlight, but it's the little work that needs to be done throughout the community. So the guys, the maintenance team, are still on site working every day, and they have been throughout this entire stay-at-home order. They're considered essential employees. Any board questions for Mike?
Go ahead.
Good morning, guys. It's
Kevin.
Yes, Mike, everything is looking great, so thank you very, very much on that. I just wanted to go ahead and reference an email that came from Susan yesterday morning with a couple of minor updates. And while there's one item that specifically mentioned, hey, big projects are on hold, landscape is only being the basic things. Are we taking advantage of this downtime to correct maybe like the adult fields that we were talking about over in East Village? Are we taking advantage of that time to work on that and get ahead, perhaps?
Yeah, I'll go ahead and answer that, Mike. Yeah, for when it comes to getting the quotes for modifying the East Village field to the adult lawn sports, we do have one quote already, and Mike's finalizing two more, I believe. So right now, those projects have been put on hold by the board, though, as far as moving forward with any of the capital improvement projects. And I think Brian's going to talk a little bit more about that next Wednesday at our regular board meeting as the treasurer.
Did that answer your question, Kevin?
Kevin, I
Yes,
want to
that's
add one more
perfect.
thing
Thank
to
you.
that. While we're putting that on hold, we're still waiting for those proposals to come in. But with the other fields, now that they're being rested, we are taking advantage of that. We fertilized all the fields towards the end of last week and first part of this week. And then now the fact that they're not being used, we're getting a little bit of rain. I think we're going to start seeing those pop nicely. And that aspect, we are taking advantage of it. I think we're going to see some big changes down by the amphitheater as well. And having that turn, that's made a drastic improvement over the past week. It still looks, rough, but it's a lot less rough.
No, that's fantastic. And I also wanted to throw a special thank you out to you for getting those blue lights while you mentioned Lakeside specifically. That looks excellent.
Yeah, that does look pretty neat.
The rain's a good point also, Mike, that last Friday when we were talking, we were concerned about a drought and about being restricted on water. And we did get a little bit of rain this week, and it looks like we have forecasted for some more rain. So I think that's positive for the grass. But yes, thank you again for the lights too, as Kevin said. Any other questions for maintenance?
Thank you, Mike.
All right.
It looks like there was a question in the chat box, maybe.
Oh, it was, I think it was more of a general one. I think Brian did answer it. Oh, wait, I missed that. Oh, so go ahead. Jeffrey, you had a question?
Yes. Apparently the CCDD removed a street tree on the north side of Spring Park. And they said that they had communicated or asked the town hall or CROA, I'm not sure who they asked exactly, if we wanted it replaced. And they said there was no response. And so they just removed it and put the grass in, and we lost a beautiful big oak tree. And I'm just wondering how that communication is happening. I understand that trees being removed along community parks are the responsibility of CROA, or, against a community park. And I'm just worried that there's a lack of communication between whoever is removing trees at the CCDD and the CROA administration.
From a bigger picture standpoint, we have been going back and forth with CDD over the past couple of weeks and with our attorneys to discuss the ownership of those easements, the ownership of those trees, who's responsible for what approval level to get those trees removed. And I do have a final legal opinion that I just received yesterday that I'll be forwarding to the board this morning. When it comes to that particular tree, I believe that there was some kind of water line damage, but Mike, can you speak to that one?
Yeah, there was a breach in the irrigation where the tree had to be removed. From that point, it was my understanding, I have not heard from CDD, that they were going to replace it. Just because they removed it, we fixed the water, or they fixed the water line, and they're going to put one back in. Beyond that, I do apologize. I haven't had any other communication with them on that aspect.
Yeah, and Susan and myself, neither one of us have told them that we don't want that tree replaced. So if they told you that we didn't want it replaced, that didn't come from me or Susan or Mike. So we'd have to find out who they're communicating with.
I think it's
But it is a little bit of a push. a give and take or push when it comes to these trees. I mean, there are some questions on who's responsible for it, and there's a state law that's being cited that the development district has no control over it now. So that's what we're trying to get the legal opinion on.
If I can
Jeffrey,
just ask.
we haven't dropped. Yeah, we haven't dropped the ball on it, Jeffrey. I think it's important that you know that the board wants to make sure we have trees too. So we are on the same page on that one, and so is management.
Okay.
We are working through the particulars of that, because there is some discussion about who actually should have replaced it and who should not have. It should not be CROA's responsibility when another entity actually removed it. So there's back and forth with regards to that, but we are working on it. We don't want it to be dropped. So thank you very much for bringing that to our attention. Go ahead.
If I can, there's a couple of other trees that have been removed by residents without permission. And those residents or those properties have not been solved. They're still been removed and they're no longer trees there. So we've got to figure out a way to make sure this just doesn't arbitrarily happen, and figure out a way to make sure, you know, if somebody removes a tree that they have to replace it.
Yeah, and I want to say to the residents that are watching, or anybody that will watch this later, you cannot just remove a tree from the easement. It has to go through the ARC process. So please make sure that you're submitting to Susanna's team and the ARC to go through that application process for that. Any trees that have been removed without permission can be fined, and it could be up to $5,000. So Jeffrey, if we're not already aware of them, if you could send them to Susanna, and then we will follow up on them. But yes, you're absolutely correct that you can't just remove trees on your own.
Great.
Yes, I'm aware of what he's referring to, and we're working on it.
Great, thank you.
Debbie, you had a question? Laurel, I'll get to you in a second. Go ahead, Debbie.
Yeah, the tree Jeffrey was speaking of, wasn't this the one that CCDD said we'll remove it, even though it was on CROA, our area, but they said you guys just replace it later? Jeffrey, can you give the history on that real quick again?
You know,
I'm going to back up for a second. I don't want to sideline the meeting as much as I think it's important to bring this to the attention. I think we need to handle it.
But I think I would like. Can I speak, Vanessa, or not?
Absolutely. I just want to make sure that I don't want to get this into a dialogue of the trees as much as making sure we stay focused. I don't disagree. We need to handle it. I just want to make sure we keep on focus. Go ahead, Debbie.
Well, I mean, I think ARC has the ability to make a decision on this. I think that from what I've read, that this has been going on for several months. Jeffrey, do you know how many months?
I don't. The tree was removed about 2 months ago, so I'm sure it's been 3 or 4 months since communication has been going back and forth. And you know that if ARC is going to take control of something and have some jurisdiction on this about removal of trees, then CROA obviously is taking some responsibility. I'll let you guys dig into this, and you know, I think some of the board members here have seen the emails and the communication, so I just wanted to bring it to your attention and make sure that I'm sure you guys can handle this, but let's keep it up on the front burner, please, and not let these kinds of, you know, misunderstandings about these spaces to be, you know, our loss as a community.
Yeah,
Vanessa, real quick, do you mind, before you go to resident questions on this, I'm just going to just real quick, the general overview of these trees. The easements that the trees are planted in belong to the development district. When you look on the county's property appraiser site, every easement within the community is listed as CDD property. Now, we do have governing documents that require a homeowner, if they're going to modify the landscaping or do something in those easements, they have to go through ARC, and it's always been that way. So it's not that ARC is just now taking over the responsibility of the trees. We always have when it comes to somebody wanting to modify, remove, or replace a tree. Now, what was in question was, does the CDD need to also give an approval? The CDD is saying now that they don't have anything to do with it. So that's what we're trying to work through to figure out what the legality is of that. And I maintain that those trees are owned and they're within the easements of the development district property. So that's what we're trying to get to the bottom of.
Thank you, everyone. I appreciate you paying attention to this. Thank you.
Steve, are you good with, did you have any more, anything else?
No, I think there was a couple of resident
Okay.
questions.
Yeah, I was gonna go ahead and open it up to Laurel now, but I wanted to make sure that you said what you needed to.
Yes,
Laurel,
thank you.
can you unmute yourself, or you need?
Yep. Can you hear me now?
Okay, I can. Thank you.
Okay, great. So actually, I was just gonna, and maybe I've missed it, but one thing that I think the Friday Flash has been good for, I know when we came into some of the short-term rentals and businesses and residential rentals, et cetera, when you guys started to step up that in the Friday Flash or the Celebration News, you had little, pockets of that, and maybe some of the tree stuff, if it's not already been there and I've missed it, could also be reiterated there as just a follow-up to Jeffrey's comment, because I do feel like sometimes there's just, it's getting the word out to everybody and all of our various types of owners, because we're kind of a mixed community of those who live here year-round and those who visit and second homes and so forth. But my question was actually more, and I'm assuming some of this will get covered in Steve's update on moving forward and reopening the community and so forth, but in sort of specifically, where are we with regard to costs for events coming up, such as 4th of July, where CROA is contributing to the cost? And I'm sure that there are contracts, obviously, as we look down the road, you're seeing lots of things like Wimbledon and the Olympics and many others, making sure that they're out of contracts before they are penalized and having to pay out money, and yet you want to sort of keep things on the hook. And so in part of your update, especially as I would imagine moving forward in this, CROA is going to have increased delinquencies like most associations are going to. There's a real concern with sort of a fiduciary, responsibility, and just kind of balancing that reopening with perhaps reduced resources for CROA based on loss of jobs and many other things. So if you can speak to that specific to 4th of July, what's the pull date that you would have to adhere to not have CROA still pay out, a decent sum of money? Thank you.
Thanks for your question, Laurel. Go ahead, Steve.
Vanessa, I was just going to say, in item 2, I think that Laurel's question fits within that overall discussion. So if that's okay with you guys, I'd like to push that to when we start talking about item 2.
Perfect.
I agree. Thank you. Okay. Any other questions? And Jeffrey, just to quickly answer your question. Yes. And Jeffrey, regarding, I saw one of the questions, I'll just clear it out really quick. There is no reduction in patrols right now. So, and actually our park monitors are still around and everything too. We have not reduced any level of service with regards to park monitors and security and all that stuff. Okay, Steve, go ahead.
Okay, the next category then is the Parks and Recreation. And Nikki's been working with the athletic field complex to get some of those worn out goal mount areas replaced with sod. And this normally would have taken place in June or July. It's standard maintenance that needs to happen on those fields. So we took advantage of the shutdown and we went ahead and resod it now, so that when we reopen and we get to that phase of reopening, those fields will be in pristine condition and be ready to go on into the summer, where we won't have to close them down again in the summer. So Nikki, if you're on, if you could just, if there's anything you'd like to add.
In regards to the Parks and Rec update, we still have park monitors twice a day from 8:30 a.m. to 1:30 p.m. as well as 3 to 9. We have Pete also monitoring in between 1:30 to 3 as well as past 9 p.m. To make sure there's no one trespassing. And another project our team's been working on is just finding alternative field trips, because as of right now, 2 of our field trips from camp have been canceled.
Are there any questions for Nikki from the board members?
I have one for Nikki. Do you all still feel we need the security at the basketball courts since no one's downtown as regular?
They still monitor Lakeside Park, even if the basketball courts are down as of right now. They are monitoring the tennis courts as well for us.
Yeah, we've definitely kept that level of service unless the board gives us different direction. We have not canceled that.
So the park monitors aren't doing that, or is it different hours?
Park monitors have their schedule. They're still working their routine schedule that they were working before we were shut down, and the security guards on the same schedule as prior to shutdown. Again, if the board wants to change that level of service, we can certainly look at that.
But there's still people that are walking around in downtowns, or especially down around the lakeside area. I actually saw somebody when I was taking my walk the other day. Somebody had jumped over the gates over at the tennis courts. So it's happening still. So So based on that, my caution is to whether or not we want to address the level of service on it. I think it's still an issue.
Any other questions for Parks and Rec? Okay, I'll move on to community standards then. As you can see in the report, and just so that all the residents are aware, this report will be in the board packet for Wednesday's meeting, for next Wednesday's meeting, and that should be posted if it's not already posted today. So residents can go on and read this entire report. I'm just hitting the very highlighted items on these. So under community standards, they're still taking other ARC applications, still managing the letters that had started prior to the shutdown before our inspectors stopped going out. So Susanna, is there anything you want to add for community standards?
Well, of course, I just want to mention that our team was hit hard by Mary Jean's loss. It was great to make her smile, and she was such a hard worker, an important part of our team. So beyond as far as that and as far as tasks go, yes, ARC applications, and we have the ARC meeting on Monday, which will be conducted via Zoom for residents to participate. It's not a terribly long agenda, but the ones that are on there are structural and items that need discussion. So we'll be preparing for that on Monday.
Any questions for Susanna?
Kevin, I saw your hand was up earlier. Do you still have a question?
Hey Vanessa, I was actually trying to comment more about the security. I just wrote a little chat in there to put it on the next agenda. Just because specifically I've been walking by there nightly and I've been noticing, and I guess I was a little confused. I thought that was done and over, but when we do have challenges and things like that, I will say that I've been watching, you know, security comes in, they park their car after going through 2 gates, then they go into the Johnson room or there's a little closet that's next to the Johnson room. They hang out in there for a little bit. So I just want to see, is that the best use of them? Is this the best time? You know, considering financially, could we enhance hours for our team instead of outsourcing something like this? That might be an agenda discussion for the future, but I think we need to kind of tighten our belts a little bit, and that might be an area that we could reallocate staffing to be more our people instead of outsourcing.
I actually have level of service as one of our conversations for our board meeting on Wednesday, so that we'll be able to have a little more conversation about this. Does that work for you?
Yeah, I mean, I was under the impression we tried not to do discussions, but more just business on board meetings, but I'm happy to do that then if that's when you'd like to.
Well, because we're not really doing official workshops, so we felt that this would be a good opportunity, and hopefully more people will be chiming in on that one too, so we can have more dialogue on it, if that's good with everybody.
Great.
And Vanessa, I'd like to add some clarification to the security guard that CROA has hired, contracted. They do not have a key or any access to get into the Jones room or the that closet that Kevin's referring to. There is a CVP, the Celebration Volunteer Patrol, and they do have keys to get into that room. In fact, that's one of their little office spaces where they keep their radios and stuff. So I just
Steve, that's going to open my concern up a little bit more, because he walked right up to the door, went right in, kept the door open.
Okay.
So well, yeah, I would just encourage somebody to check it out.
Okay. We'll definitely look into it. Any other questions for Susanna on community standards?
Thank you, Susanna.
Okay, admin and business office, they're still getting the phone calls coming through directly to Laura's house. Some of the front desk workers are working with Nikki to help plan summer camp. But I will turn it over to Laura. Laura, you have anything you want to add for admin business office? Make sure you're unmuted.
Sorry, I couldn't unmute myself.
That's okay.
Yes, and I know someone had mentioned about the assessments, and I want to let the community know we have not run our late reports since this have started. We have been holding off on that until the board makes a decision as to what they wish to do as far as that. So as of right now, we have not been doing that since we are in an unprecedented time. But as far as business office, we're running relatively same as normal. I do want to let the community know that we have received a lot of assessments checks to town hall. They are going to be delayed showing up in your accounts and us depositing them just because we're not in the office. I will be in one day next week to scan all those and get them all deposited into our account. But just so the community knows, we have been receiving them. They're just on a little bit of a delay. So, I mean, if people have a specific question about whether we received theirs, go ahead and shoot me an email, just because I don't know every single day. I'm not in the office, so, but I will be in one day next week. So if they have a specific question, they can definitely email me.
Laura, go ahead and give out that email real quick.
businessoffice@celebrationtownhall.com.
Thank you. And just again, an overview on this. The assessments were due April 1st for this quarter. Residents have until the 31st, if that's even 31 days in April. All my days are getting mixed up here. 30th of April. And that is the time when typically they would be considered late. So the board will have that discussion after that April 30th deadline to discuss what, if any, late fees or interest will be added for any late assessment payments. So any questions well, actually, before I go to questions, Susan, anything you want to add for admin business office?
No, there's really nothing to add other than we got the board packet out. So you should have received the board packet yesterday, and we'll have it posted on the website today in after this meeting.
Okay. Any questions for Susan or Laura?
Yes, I have one. Since we know checks are coming in now, when town hall may not be open, but can we get somebody by there more often than once a week to look for checks and do the deposit? That seems like it would be a control strength, as opposed to saying that we got the check setting in town hall and we're not opening. So let's revise that process just a little. The board package that comes out will not have the financial update. I'm going to get the March stuff. Oh, it won't have March. It'll have February, I'm sure. I'm going to get the March stuff from Susan today, and I'll put something out that we can discuss next week. Probably get that out Monday.
Yeah, after this meeting, I'll touch base with Susan, and we'll talk about increasing the frequency of getting those checks.
And Debbie, you had a question. Oh, just a second. Debbie had a quick question, Susan, and then I'll go ahead and get you. Go ahead, Debbie.
Yeah, I was just wondering to that point, as far as checks with everyone, there's people working from home, so we do have someone occasionally going in, why the checks were directed to be sent to Atlanta?
That's our lockbox. So we typically encourage everyone to send it to the lockbox because that's an automated process, as opposed to coming into the office. Then we scan them through our RDC scanner. So, it goes directly to the bank, and town hall never touches it if you send it to Atlanta.
Okay, so someone in Atlanta is scanning them there and depositing them.
That's the bank function. Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Okay, I've forgotten that. So when you talk about the checks, you're talking about someone going to the office and just doing the posting, then, is what you're saying.
Right.
So
and the checks that come to us directly.
Okay,
yes.
And then there are some that come to us directly.
Yeah.
Most of them go to the lockbox, though. There are, I don't know how many checks, but I'm going to say maybe 20 checks a week that come to town hall. So it's not a large number.
Okay, gotcha.
And I think Laura's point was just to make sure that if residents don't see it right away posted, that it is part of the process that we're getting to and getting. But Susan and I will definitely talk about the frequency and make sure that we can get those done as quickly as possible. Any other business office questions or admin? Okay, and then lastly, we have for IT, Patrick's been working closely with Comcast to get some more of the community Wi-Fi, the free Wi-Fi services throughout the community, and then some of the troubleshooting throughout. But Patrick, anything you want to add for the update?
No, not really. We just actually went through a server transition over the weekend, just to make sure that printer ports were transferred over. Many of the settings were transferred over, and we are good to go. We chose the weekend just to make sure that we had minimal downtime with staff working Monday through Friday. So everything went well, no issues to report there. And everything else is business as usual.
And Patrick, along the lines of the server, you're still working towards over the next 18 to 24 months of trying to move as much stuff to cloud-based as possible. Is that correct?
Correct. Actually, I had a discussion with our corporate office this past week, and unfortunately, they're trying to make sure that they are keeping up with all the different communities and making sure that everyone's has the capability to work from home. So this conversation is being pushed until we return back into the office. So,
I
but
just
yes,
want to make
we
sure
are
the board
still working in that direction for cloud-based management.
Good. Yep, and that was direction that the board gave us. So we wanted to make sure that you heard that we're still moving in that direction.
Yes.
Debbie, you had a question about activity?
Yeah, are we going over July 4th at this today or not at all?
During the second agenda item, I'll talk a little bit about the reopening plan.
Okay, thanks.
Anything else?
If there's no other questions, for Patrick and IT, that's the end of my update. Are there any general questions that you'd like me to answer?
I think to try and stay timely, I don't see anybody, any hands or anything. And then Kevin had just asked on the chat box just to have how the month is going and everything. I don't know how easy that information would be, or if it would be better just to wait. We can have that conversation on the side, unless you have something that you'd like to add on that, Steve.
Can you ask the question again? I don't think I heard it
Yeah,
properly.
just, you don't have the chat box. It just says, could the board have receive a late report to understand how the community is going? We're halfway through the month. This is knowledge that will help the board making future decisions. I know I think these weekly board meetings are actually extremely helpful in understanding how many calls we're getting, what's happening. Financially, I don't know that we'll really have a good update on that until after the end of April, but go ahead, Susan.
I was going to say that the business office has put together the last 5 years late notices that we've sent out. So once we get through the month of April and assessments are considered late, and I'm going to say normally we run that report around the 4th or the 5th of the month, we'll be able to discuss with you exactly what the increase is.
Thank you, Susan. Okay, Steve. I think we're set with this one. No, go ahead. Oh, Mike.
David's got his hand up.
David, go ahead, David.
Yeah, I think that's the purpose of these weekly meetings. This is our 4th weekly meeting, and that's why we're doing this, to continue to stay on top of what's happening in the community, whether it's people using facilities that they shouldn't be. Do we need, what are our park monitors doing? That's why we are meeting weekly. That is the purpose of our discussion.
David, of course, no, I understand that. I'm talking more towards the level of financially how the community is doing, and that was my simple question. But thank you.
Yeah, the late report for our payables, for account payables and stuff, and account receivables. Okay. Any other questions? Okay. Let's go ahead and move on to the pandemic discussion. Steve, do you want to start off with that one?
Yes, I really wish we were talking about an academic discussion and not in the middle of a pandemic. This is not anything that anybody has ever been trained for. It's a 100-year pandemic. So a lot of this stuff we're kind of figuring out as we go along. So last night we did get some leadership and some guidance from the President of the United States on some guidelines for a 3-phase process or plan to reopen communities. And he essentially said that along with these guidelines, it's up to the governors of each state to determine when their states can reopen. So it's not a blanket plan that the entire country opens at one time. It is more of a each individual state will open. So as we get down to our state and our governor, we're really waiting for the direction of whether it's going to be a blanket opening of the state, which I highly doubt that will be, or if it's going to be county by county. So there is a 14-day downward trend that needs to take place before each state or each county can start really addressing those different phases. So all of this, I'm going completely on assumptions that our governor will give the authority to our local counties to determine when we'll reopen. And if the case is that we still are, in Osceola County is within that 14-day decline range, and May 1st was the date that the governor had originally set for our stay at home. So if May 4th is the reopening date for us, CCMC would revert back to our original coronavirus COVID-19 plan, where we were rotating in and out of the office, where we were practicing our social distancing within the office. When it comes to reopening facilities, during phase 1, all indoor activities like lifelong learning, dance classes, those types of things would need to stay shut down. Our sports leagues would need to stay closed, but we could open our playgrounds, our gym, our pools, and our open spaces. We could open those as soon as May 4th with those pretty strict guidelines that have been put in place for social distancing and cleaning and those types of things. And again, we had this plan moving into the pandemic before we were all ordered to go home. Phase 2 would be the next level after phase 1 that we really want to try and get to as soon as we can. And that would allow us for doing day camp, allow us to have our indoor programming reopened, and then allow our sports groups to meet again. And I believe in phase 2, and I believe in phase 3 is when we can really start talking about the large events again and getting back to those. So I know that there are some questions about 4th of July and if we're going to cancel, if we're not. I think we're too early on to cancel because we haven't seen the data yet from our local county on what their timeline looks like for making sure that we've hit that 14-day downward trend and how soon we can get to phase 3. But I will let JR real quickly jump in and just talk a little bit about when contracts need to be renewed or finalized and signed, and how we can reduce any commitments to spending for those types of events. So JR, if you could jump in on that.
Well, the entertainment contracts are signed. The deposits already have been placed. The balances are not due to the evening of the event anyway. So worst case scenario, we can apply the deposits towards a future event. I know that the sponsor of the fireworks has paid their deposit. So I would have to talk with the fireworks company and the sponsor regarding that. I'm not sure how that would work out. As far as everything else goes, I have some orders pending, but nothing that has to be paid right now. It's just as far as equipment and things like that. That's stuff that can be canceled without any financial burden.
So just to reiterate, myself, my staff, we're going to be meeting on Monday, the leadership team, to really discuss working towards a goal of phase 1 reopening as of May 4th for the community. Again, all of that can change based on the data and the guidance we get from the governor or from the county, but that's the direction that we're going to start moving in. And I'll certainly open it for discussion with the board or any questions that you have for management.
Steve, just a second here. I'll get to you in just a second, Brian. Debbie, you had texted me. You wanted to speak. Go ahead, and then I'll get to Brian.
Yes, I did. Our county commissioner was kind enough to join the call and have some information that may be useful. So I just wanted to introduce Peggy Chaudhary.
Hi, Peggy.
Peggy, just I think just hit the unmute if you're muted, and you should be there joining us.
I don't know where I'm not sure which one she's at. Is she the forest that
I
may not be able to unmute herself?
572, yeah.
Maybe the telephone number there?
Hold on.
I'll try to unmute this one. You got it? Oh, there we go.
Okay. Hello, can everyone hear me?
Yeah.
Yes. Thank you, Peggy.
Hi, good morning. No, good morning. Thank you for allowing me to speak for just a few minutes. I did hear most of the call regarding the county, when the county's going to open. So just to give an update as of right now, 10:47, I would say, or 10:46 a.m., the county doesn't have exact dates of opening. And just so that everyone knows, what happens is, as county commissioners, as the five of us, one of the five of us are part of the emergency policy group committee. And that is normally our chairwoman or chairman at the time. It's handled the same way as hurricane emergencies and so forth, since we are at a state of an emergency. That group meets all the time, every day, sometimes even twice a day, depending on what's happening during the day for that emergency. And they will be meeting, actually, I believe they're meeting right now as well. And they are consistently talking about what the Florida Department of Health and the governor's office is relaying to the counties, and talking about not just those that have been, our numbers and statistics and where we're going with testing and so forth, but also suggestions on opening and all of that. So far, as of right now, we have not gotten exact dates or phases of opening. In conversations in the commission meetings, we have been speaking a lot about how an opening could reoccur. I've been working hard with staff to kind of talk about our side of town and what direction we're going to be going, as far as where the county could put efforts in and helping and assisting, not just every community, but also our industry, our number one industry of tourism, and how we're going to do that. I just got off the call this morning with our Experience Kissimmee board and team. They are looking, they've already put a plan together for phasing of openings. However, they too do not have dates. They work closely, of course, with all of tourism bureaus and around the state, and also with the governor's office, and speaking to them about what their ideas are when it comes to tourism and their phases of opening. And of course, our biggest asset of Disney is in conversations, not just with the county, with us overall, but also with everyone in that industry, and seeing how we're going to be bringing this back. I think it's really early to talk about dates on the county side, just because every time we do, there's always a hard stop from our Florida Health Department personnel, and just saying we've got to really get some more direction there. In retrospect, I've been sharing lots of information. For those of you that are on my email list, I've been sharing stuff there. If you'd like to be on that, I'm happy to add anyone. You could just shoot me an email and I could add you to that email list. We also have the website of the county. I don't know if everyone's been able to log in, but the staff has put the actual tabs where you could get the coronavirus updates and information, everything regarding the CARES Act, the financial assistance we're providing, the food pantry assistance the county is providing, and so forth. So I just thought, just kind of talking about that, I'm happy to answer any questions. As far as any plans that we have for the 4th of July, that's not in conversation at this time with the county. Again, in phases, we would have to also speak and get the direction of what tourism is doing, as well as our Experience Kissimmee team will be doing for 2021 from January to July, or for 4th of July, or any other special dates that we normally celebrate, and seeing how the people will be traveling and so forth as well. So all those conversations are happening. We just don't have specific dates. And I'm happy to answer one or two questions, but I do have a hard stop at 10:55, and I apologize. I have to be on another call.
Brian, did you have a question, or did you want to wait?
I'll wait.
Laurel did have a question specifically for the commissioner. Did you want to wait, or do you want? Okay, go ahead, Laurel. Can you unmute?
Are you
yourself?
sure, Brian? I'll defer to the board. I had a question only if there was time, but you sure?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, I just generally had thank you, Commissioner Chaudhary, for joining, and I'll pose this back to the CROA board afterwards, but I was pleased to hear the Florida Department of Health is weighing in on, your decisions heavily, and and this isn't at all a political statement, I've been concerned, obviously, in the leadership of the governor for our state. I think factually there's been some concerning evidence there, just, related to coronavirus and sort of the handling of that. So are there any other, professional organizations or doctors organizations, et cetera, that you're looking to, or is kind of the predominant focus trying to balance Florida Department of Health recommendations with the governor's office? Anything beyond, I guess, maybe more on a federal level that you are taking into consideration? Thank you.
Yes, of course. I'm happy to answer that. And thank you for the question. It's a great one. The Florida Health Department has really, truly been in one of the lead agencies that we've been following direction from. FEMA, of course, has taken a huge active role, not just because they're going to be helping us recover from this, but more importantly, also suggestions as to during this recovery and what funding will be available and what funding will be recuperated back as the county progresses on seeing how much we're going to have to implement to try to help resolve in this matter. And many of the recommendations on the Washington side as well in the phone calls. I know, obviously, we all hear stuff what our president says. However, we also get updates from his team separately with phone calls every week. And the message pretty much is also that we would be following the governor's leads for all the states, and how each county individually will feel comfortable enough to reopen and how they would reopen. Each state, of course, is very different when it comes to what their assets are. We have ours is tourism, and so therefore, I'm sure that the governor will have direction to tell us as to what he believes and how we should be opening and what phases in the near future. And just so you know, then from there, after the governor makes a decision, the Florida Health Department will also give recommendations on how that would work. FEMA will then also chime in and advise as to how they believe those phases can work collaboratively with our emergency policy team. Then the team itself in the committee makes a decision. In that team, just so you know, there are different elected officials as well. We've got the city of Kissimmee, the city of St. Cloud, our sheriff's office, our school board members, as well as the staff from the personnel of emergency management. They also coordinate and collaborate with other emergency teams in our region, in our Central Florida, specifically Orange County, which is why you've seen a lot of things collaborate with Orange County, especially when it came to the stay-at-home order, done pretty much almost at the same time from one day to another. So that's all being coordinated together. I think the biggest, to everybody's mind in county perspective, is what assistance we're going to be getting, because as was mentioned before, this pandemic has not happened before. It's something new to many of us, at least in my lifetime, and I know many of our lifetimes. So at the end of the day, we don't really know the true impact financially, but we know we're not going to be able to sustain it alone as a county. So we will definitely depend on assistance from the state and the federal government as we progress. We've already made lots of good relationships with the governor's office and in the federal level with our lobbying teams in Washington and in the state. And we're going to consistently work hard to make sure that Osceola is getting their fair share. Where we do, unfortunately, suffer a little bit is our population count. Again, this is why the census is so important, but our population count currently, for some of the assistance being out there, if you've already heard under CARES Act and other stimulus plans coming down the pipeline, it's for a population over 450 to 500,000. Our population count on record is approximately 370,000. So we don't meet some of the thresholds that we need regarding population count for some of the assistance. That's going to be a little bit detrimental to us. We do have Congressman Darren Soto that also gives us weekly updates, that has already announced that he is already putting in a bill with others to help assist counties with less population to get some more funding towards us and go from there. But again, I just want to stress that we are going to be, I think whenever we do open, it's going to be very slow and in phases. Our tourism market is so concerned, has suffered. We've gotten calls from businesses that have already said they probably will not reopen. So it is pretty serious as far as the business side of our West End that we're used to seeing. It might be a different look. We're hoping to help and assist as much as we can. And I'm a huge advocate, obviously, as you know, for our end of town and making sure that our industry is properly represented on the county commission, and we talk about all of the different services that are truly needed as well. But that is basically those updates. I want to thank you all for giving me some time, and please know that any one of you could reach out to me directly. I'm always available. I'm working more now from home than I've ever worked even at the office regarding calls. I'm on from like 8 a.m. to 10 p.m. So please feel free to contact me directly, get a conference call, it's fine. And then of course, I'm always constantly doing email updates. So thank you again for your time, folks.
Thank you, Commissioner. I know you said you had a hard stop on at 10:55. So thank you very much. I appreciate your time. There are a couple people that have questions, but I think perhaps an email directly to Commissioner Chaudhary would be helpful. Is that reasonable?
Yes, that would be fine. They could email me at peggy.chaudhary@osceola.org, and I'm happy to answer them. If I cannot, I usually put the person in touch with whatever department, whether state or federal level. Thank you again, everyone. Please stay safe.
Thank you so much.
And Vanessa, real quick, JR, do we have Commissioner Chaudhary's email that she just gave on the Friday Flash? I know I did look at it this morning, but I don't remember if that was on there or not.
No, we don't have her email listed on the Flash.
She just gave it out publicly, so if we could just go ahead and add that to the Flash also, then I think that would be helpful.
Thank you very much. I see hands up. Brian, I believe before we got started, you had your hand up. Go ahead.
Yeah, what I'll do is I'll follow up on the 4th of July a little. I think if we looked at what Germany did, it's going to be a real good guide. And what Germany came out with, and they're just a little ahead of us, is that there would be no professional events, no concerts, no large gatherings allowed through August 31st. And no, even in their phase 1, no restaurants or bars can be open or anything like that until later in the summer when they make a decision. So probably, because we're going to get these questions like we did with the contracts and stuff like that repetitively, it might be good to have JR just look at any event that we've got planned for the remainder of the second quarter and the third quarter and just say what contracts are in place. And if he could just send a report to the board, then we can sit there and say, okay, we've got the facts in front of us. So that way, at least when these questions come up again, we're ready for them, because it's going to be staggered. We don't know exactly how, but it would be good to just be prepared for the question. That's my recommendation.
Thank you, Brian. Go ahead, David.
Yeah, several things. I know we're scheduled till 11, so we officially have a few minutes left. We talked about this last week. About tiering our response, and this is not about phases, but you know, the federal has the standards, and then under that is the state, under that is the county, under that is us. When we made our decisions over a month ago, we preceded the county and the county preceded the state. So I would, of course, we have to follow what the state and local county does, but it doesn't mean we have to go in lockstep with them. I would err on the side of extreme caution. I'm glad to hear the commissioner talking about listening to health professionals. I think that's what guided us to start with. And I hope that that will continue to guide us as we move forward. I really appreciate what Brian said. So 2 last thoughts on that. As we look at phases, I would look at phases within the phases. So it doesn't mean you do everything in that what Steve was outlining as phase 1. We can look at several pieces within that. I think that would be helpful to have written out, and then we can start to digest that in more detail. The other thing is by releasing too early, we know that this is already happening. There's a second wave. So we've got to be very careful of that. You know, I think everyone's tired of being housebound. I'm concerned about that, but health and safety are first. From my college professionals, a little informal poll was done. Would you be comfortable sending your son or daughter to college this fall, whether it's a freshman or returning college? Nobody said yes. So that's instructive. So even if we offered an event, you know, the question is, would people show up? Because there's a lot of fear. There's a lot of unknown with this. And I will strongly argue in favor of, you know, for all of us, for our own health and safety. And we may be much delayed behind the county. And I think that's okay. We are an HOA. We're on the board to represent our residents and what we think is in the best interest of health and safety for our community. So I think that's a much longer discussion. But I would appreciate seeing what Steve just articulated in writing so we can dissect that even further. And again, some sub-themes within that.
Vanessa, while you're going to the next board member, just real quick response to David's. We certainly are just going by the guidelines that have been presented to us up to this point. There's going to be further guidelines, and it's probably going to be modified based on the need of Osceola County, which will be much more fine-tuned than the very general guidelines we got from the nation. And then, as you said, you absolutely have the authority to refine those guidelines even further. So we're working with what we have now. Once more information gets out, we'll keep fine tuning it. And then the ultimate decision and the ultimate authority on when we reopen is going to be completely up to the board. But we just have to plan and be prepared for whatever decision you guys make.
Thank you. Any other questions from the board as a follow-up with regards to the pandemic? Debbie, you had asked a question earlier, or you had a question earlier when Peggy was on, but I don't know if you still have, if you still had another question or not.
No, I just wanted to thank her for joining in and providing some information, because I think, you know, obviously we had talked when we first discussed this about following the county. So I just was appreciative as the county liaison position, having her join in. So I didn't know she was there for that number. That was it.
Thank you. Any other questions from the board regarding the pandemic? Okay, then I will reiterate to everybody that the next meeting will actually be an official board meeting, and that is next Wednesday, April the 22nd. And then we have our next weekly update on Friday, April 24th. We do have on the calendar tentatively scheduled an actual workshop for May 4th. But we have been saying we're not going to be doing workshops. I just wanted to get a board consensus that instead we just need to do the Friday update on May 1st. I'm looking at my calendar here. So we'd have our next update the 24th, and then again May 1st, and then see where we're at from that point. But I am not doing workshops and gathering people. I think regardless would still probably not be a good idea. Is that from the board members? Is that the general direction you're thinking also?
I would be a fan, this is Brian Kinsel, I would be a fan of booking the Friday briefing sessions all the way through May too. I mean, I think at some point we just got to reflect what we all deep down probably know is going to be reality. We'll do the board meetings, and then if we hit a point where we have a reason to change, great, but David is right with everything he said too. We're going to have to wait on the health people and the county people and everything, and we're going to have to prepare for time.
So is the I think I've seen some other comments with regards to the other board members. Everybody seems to be through the first week of May seems to be the general consensus. So we will go ahead and go through. Comment. Just 1 second, Debbie. I'll give you. So we will go ahead and have a workshop all the way through May 1st. Debbie, go ahead and make whatever comment you had.
So workshop or just the Friday updates?
A Friday update. I apologize if I misspoke. Yeah, so we will not have a workshop on May 4th, that Monday, which is currently scheduled, which would also mean we would not have one on the 18th, probably.
Right. And I think before, as we were having 2 workshops we had scheduled, and now we're having 4 Friday updates. I'd like to just consider possibly talking about it at the next meeting, that we do at least 1 workshop, because we are having situations where votes are coming up on the agenda, Friday updates. And I just feel if it's going to be something coming up, whether it's on the agenda or not, that it needs to be on an agenda where the residents have an opportunity to join us. Whether it's an update or a workshop, I think the Zoom is working fine. I think we could possibly look at having 1 workshop.
Gotcha. Thank you. I appreciate that. And I agree with you, Debbie, about trying not to vote. I did check with Steve prior to our meeting today to make sure that there was nothing that we needed to vote on. And everything that we need to vote on will be, we're trying to channel everything to an actual board meeting and not on any workshop. So Steve, that's consistent with what we've been doing as much as possible, correct?
It is, and I think the other, if we come up with lifestyle ideas to try and engage community so we don't all just completely lose our minds being locked into our houses, and it's something that needs to be voted on by the board, we'll make sure that we call that out. We don't just include that underneath the update. We'll have it as a separate discussion item and ask for a vote if there are anything like that. And I think what Debbie's referring to was the Food Truck Friday, or the food trucks coming in for the lunchtime.
Actually, anything, Steve, it doesn't matter what it is. I just think anything that's voted on, which should be on the agenda. It's not specifically targeted towards food truck or not at all.
Pretty sure that's the only thing that you guys voted on though, on this
It
Friday
is
update.
the only thing so far, but again, I just don't want other things to come up. It's just a matter
I
of.
concur.
I think what Debbie is just saying is we can still do business if we need to on a Friday call. We just need to put it on the agenda. Is that right, Debbie?
Correct.
I think that's what you said. Okay. So yes, and we will. I think the board generally is all in agreement that we need to make sure if there's a specific item that needs to be voted on, consistent with when we did the voting for the mold mitigation. We had to ratify one thing that was kind of at the beginning of the year, or at the beginning of the calls a couple weeks ago. So other than that, we have not been voting on anything. Any other comments with regards to schedule?
Kevin just put in the chat that he felt like the Friday meetings. Well, Kevin put in the chat that he felt like the Friday meetings are the same as a workshop.
Okay. And we're good with that? Okay. Then I will guess we will have our next meeting on April the 22nd as an actual board meeting. My understanding is packets will be out today for the public, and I encourage you all. I love seeing all of these residents here. I hope that it continues. So please chime in. I hope we offered enough opportunity for people to speak up. If anybody has public comment, we will go ahead. I think we've been working well with public comment. So we will open up our board meeting next week on Wednesday. As you know, if anybody has any public comment to start off with, just like we do our regular board meetings, we'll give that a try. Again, 3 minutes will be your time limit. We'll try and stay hard with that. And I appreciate everybody's efforts. Thank you so much. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So
wait, I need a motion to adjourn. Sorry.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you, David. Do you have a second? Second for Brian. All in favor?
Aye.
Excellent. Thank you all.
Have a great weekend.
Bye.
Stay safe. Stay
Bye.
healthy. Bye, everyone. Thank you.
Betsy, enjoy the rolling waves and the palm trees.
I will. Thank you.
Bye.
And your construction.
Yes.
Wait till
Bye-bye.
next week.
Oh, I'll look forward to it now. Thank you.
Bye.